Welcome to the Independent Advisors Podcast, where we dive into the world of stocks, tradable markets, and financial planning with Jessup Wealth Management's Chief Investment Officer, Mark McEvely, and CEO, Matt Jessup. You'll hear tips, tricks, and strategies to address your financial well-being, and most importantly, conveyed in a way that everyone can understand. Here are your hosts, Mark and Matt.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 300. Yes, that's 300 of the Independent Advisors Podcast, where Matt Jessup and I, Mark McEvely, bring you everything you need to know from the past week in the world of financial markets and financial planning. So instead of our normal good morning, Matt, good afternoon.
That's right. It is after 4. The market is closed. I am sipping on a cocktail here, and I think this is going to be a lively podcast.
Yeah, it should be. We obviously are celebrating another milestone for the Independent Advisors Podcast today with a special episode that has a little bit of a different format. So as Matt said, we are recording this episode after hours and enjoying an adult beverage while doing so, and hopefully that might make the banter and conversation a little more lively. So we'll talk about a couple of headlines here to start off, and then just get into some personal fun questions that maybe listeners would find enjoyable. So before we get into this week's show, if you've been enjoying the Independent Advisors Podcast for a while now and want to take the next step in your financial journey, I'd encourage you to head to our website, jessupwealthmanagement.com. Matt offers a 15-minute initial call where you can discuss your financial goals and see if JWM is a good fit for your needs. Scheduling is easy once you land at jessupwealthmanagement.com. Just click Schedule Initial Call and select a time that works best for you. There's a quick survey to fill out that will help guide the conversation and ensure your time is used efficiently. If you're ready to learn more, visit jessupwealthmanagement.com and book your call today. Also, to celebrate the 300th episode of the Independent Advisors Podcast, we're giving away a $100 gift card. And the winner of this gift card gets a choice to either Starbucks or Amazon. So Starbucks, that would buy a lot of coffee.
Well, a lot of coffee fixes right there.
One lucky winner will be randomly selected from our YouTube subscriber list and announced on Monday, May 19th. Subscribe to our channel, Jessup Wealth Management, Inc., for your chance to win. And if you are already a subscriber, you're automatically entered. Good luck, and thank you for being a part of our journey. And here's to the next 300 episodes after this.
It's going to be fun.
As always, we will quickly review the month-to-date and year-to-date performance of the major market indices that we track. This data is from YCharts, and as of the market close on May 14th. S&P 500 index is up 5.7% for the month of May, and shockingly, Matt, now positive by 0.1% year to date.
If you just imagine if you woke up today. If you went to sleep December 31st and woke up today, like, 0.1%. I guess it's been a little bit of a kind of a nothing year.
Yeah, maybe there's been some ups and downs, and hasn't been too bad.
Oh my goodness gracious!
It's quite the difference there.
Yep.
Dow Jones Industrial Average up 3.6% for the month and down 0.9% for the year. The Nasdaq Composite Index up 9% for the month and down 1.6% for the year. The Russell 2000 Small Cap Index up 7.1% for the month and down 5.6% for the year. And the Vanguard All World ex United States ETF is up 2.9% for the month and up 11.8% for the year. 3-month Treasury rate at 4.42%, the 2-year Treasury rate at 3.98%, and the 10-year rate at 4.45%. Moving on to just a couple brief headlines and current events from the past week. Obviously, the biggie, Matt, is the U.S. and China temporary trade deal, I think is a good way to say it, was announced. So
I don't think people thought they could come to that agreement in 2 days. Did you?
No. And as we previewed in last week's episode, the U.S. and China were holding trade negotiations in Geneva, and they announced on Monday of this week that they reached an agreement on tariffs for at least the next 90 days. The U.S. is dropping their tariffs or our tariffs to 30% from 145%, and China dropping their tariffs to 10% from 125%. So stocks rallied hard, obviously, on this news on Monday, and that actually spilled over into a strong day Tuesday. And the NASDAQ was positive again as we are recording this on Wednesday. So it was definitely a huge driver of market performance over the past couple of days.
Absolutely. I want to say we're 6 now consecutive positive days for the NASDAQ composite, because it was 5 yesterday. Yeah, we're at 6 now.
Yeah, which is pretty uncommon. So
very uncommon.
Obviously, still a lot of time for them to hammer out some sort of permanent deal. Again, this is only for the next 90 days, so hopefully something more longer term can get done.
The more clarity that and certainty the administration can provide the markets, I think that will have a direct effect on bringing volatility down. Is that a appropriate way of saying it, Mark?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree. Lastly, House Republicans revealed their initial tax plan to extend the Trump administration's expiring tax cuts that were enacted in 2017. And I just wanted to quickly go over some of the highlights of this plan, because with everything else going on with the administration so far year to date, you haven't heard anything about the tax plan, which is really important because the first Trump administration, their tax cuts and tax plan that they enacted in 2017 set to expire at the end of this year. So they needed to do something, obviously, to keep their promises
get that
to
extended.
Their voter base.
Yeah, get that extended. But yeah, it's due to sunset.
So some of the big ones that came out of this, again, this is just the initial plan. There's going to be several revisions to this before it actually gets voted on and enacted, I'm sure.
Yep.
But first, state and local tax deduction cap is raised from $10,000 to $30,000.
Love that.
Yeah, that's big. That was one of the complaints, I think, about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, was that deduction was pretty low.
Okay, I like that.
The plan extends the individual and business tax cuts enacted in 2017.
Like that.
It eliminates federal tax on tips and overtime pay, which was a campaign promise of the administration.
I like that.
It ends electric vehicle credits after December 31st. University endowment taxes are raised to 21% from 1.4%.
Ooh,
which
that's going to be interesting.
I'm sure no one was probably even aware that endowment tax rates were that low. New deduction for car loan interest that phases out above $100,000 of income for individuals and $200,000 of income for married couples.
That's big.
Yeah. An additional $4,000 in standard deduction for people 65 and older that phases out above $70,000 in income for individuals. And
I like that.
$150,000 for married couples filing a joint tax return. Child tax credit and standard deductions temporarily will be boosted, although the details have not been disclosed yet. And then a new $1,000 tax-preferred savings account for children born between 2025 and 2028. So
let's get those birth rates up.
Yeah, having children the next couple of years would be a good time to do it. So again, this has not been enacted, has not been voted on. It is the initial plan, so I would expect a lot of changes before this gets signed into law. So a good first step, because we're down to another 7 months before the 2017 TCJA expires.
Very interesting.
So,
and not being talked about a lot.
No, not being talked about. There's been just a couple other minor things that people have been focused on over the past couple of weeks.
It's well said.
So I'll turn it over to you. I know you came up with some questions for us to talk about today. It's going to be more of a personal show, and us kind of deviating away from our normal schedule of events and routine here.
Yes. So what I'd like to start off by saying is have 8 roundtable questions that you and I are going to talk through, and then it's going to be more after that of a lightning round. More, you can only answer one of 2 ways. And I think it'll be a fun way for not only our legacy listeners, but our newer listeners to get to know you and me on a more personal level, which I know there's always a desire for that amongst our listener and viewer base. So let's just get right into it. I get asked a lot, how do you prepare for this podcast? And we obviously been doing it episode 300. We've been doing this for a while. So I'll let you start, Mark, out of respect. How do you prep for the podcast? What's your podcast prep routine? Any weird rituals or must-haves that you do every week?
Yeah, I think for me, it's pretty simple. I'm always reading and have my curated list of research that I am reading every week, whether that's during the workday or on the weekends or at night after Mia goes to bed. So I just honestly have a shortcut on my phone that if I'm reading something that I like that I think will be useful to share on the podcast, I will email that to myself very quickly.
Yep.
I have a folder that all my podcast research goes into, and then during the week, at the end of, let's say, for example, this week, either Thursday or Friday, I will prepare my talking points for the following week's episode. So,
yes,
pretty simple pretty simple process. And it's a culmination of people posting stuff on X and email newsletters that I subscribe to, and then some other independent research that I just go ahead and email myself.
All right. I'm very similar, but it's evolved over the years. So at the beginning of the podcast, many, many years ago, pre-pandemic, I would put a lot of prep in a full week in advance. I'm to the point where I am usually the last to submit their notes, I would say. And my biggest problem is I'll be set. If we're going to tape usually on a Thursday morning at 9 a.m., and Jenna's ready for us, I'm the person that if I get in the office at 8:30, I'm like, I know I pick 4 things, but I think I need to jolt 2 and add 2 new because they're more relevant and timely right now. So I'm usually the guy who is adding stuff last minute and trying to throw some zingers out there. And I'm always trying to come up with information or a narrative about the market that is underneath the surface that I could foresee with my years of experience. Hey, this is going to be talked about in a month. I can see it on the horizon. Let's get ahead of it. And that's one thing I'm very proud about with the podcast is I think you and I do a very good job, Mark, in dissecting the market and in telling listeners and viewers not only what's being talked about today, but hey, keep your ears up. This is where I think the puck is going. And more often than not, we're not right all the time, but we've been ahead of a lot of things over the years.
Yeah, it's great.
Any weird rituals you have?
Rituals? No, I don't think so.
There's sometimes where I see some stuff on X, and even though it's cited and sourced, it might come from a crazy tagline. There's no way on the podcast because I have to do it legitimately, right? I got to say what the source is.
Yeah.
There's no way I could quote. I remember a couple times I was quoting Wall Street Jesus.
Right. A couple of good Twitter X handles out there.
Right.
But yeah, you find, I think just, from being in the industry for as long as we've been in, you just find people who, number one, you can trust, 2 people that you've talked to, where they're getting their data from.
Yeah.
And that helps kind of curate your list of people that, we share their work on this episode, and it's no secret that list is repetitive on this show, and that's by design, I think, because there is a lot of data out there that is not good data. Right?
I agree,
and you want to make sure that you're doing the best to comb through that to make sure that it's all accurate information that you're sharing.
I always like having what I call my canaries in the coal mine as well. So there is some pretty consistent bears that I follow online. And when they start to get boisterous, that's when I know we're getting close to a turn in the market.
Right.
And I'm not talking just recently. I'm talking in general. Because once they start getting really confident, I'm like, okay, we're getting close to a short-term turn in the market.
And it just made me think of I saw this earlier today. I guess on one of Jim Cramer's shows over the past couple of weeks, he said that it was this sell-off that we had back in early April was going to be like the 1987 Black Monday.
Yes.
So there's a Twitter account that's called The Inverse Cramer that says, you cannot make this up. Jim Cramer's 1987 Black Monday prediction was the exact market bottom. NASDAQ is up 24% since. He is the single greatest indicator known to mankind. So this he said, Jim Cramer warns of potential
Horribly
Black
wrong
Monday
consistently, Mark.
stock crash. And that was literally on April 7th when the market bottomed this year.
I'm not trying to throw stones at this, but you got to call a spade a spade. I mean, the consistency. You got to give him credit for the consistency. It is impressive.
It's pretty impressive.
It's impressive.
So,
all right, next question. What capabilities or features do you think the Independent Advisors podcast is going to have when we hit the 500 episode threshold? What's on your wish list?
Man, that's a good question. We've always wanted to do like live podcast episodes. So I think it'd be cool to either do it here in Dayton or travel around and do some live Q&A. Maybe go through a couple of curated pieces of research that we have prepared, and then from there just open it up.
Yep.
I think that would be really interesting because at that point we're just flying by the seat of our pants, right? We don't have anything prepared to talk about, and it's just giving our honest and raw opinions on things. But other than that, interested to see what AI does to the podcasting industry over the next couple of years.
Interesting.
I'm sure it'll make our lives easier from a prep standpoint, but just interested to see how that's going to affect just the broader podcast industry.
I'll mimic everything you said, and I want to get to the point with just technology to where, Jenna can start incorporating like intros. So like we go into like tweets, articles, and research, and we got this fun, funky like intro that like comes into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Some video graphics.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, let's continue with the roundtable questions. Favorite investment quote and why?
Mine pretty easy. It's let your winners run and cut your losers short. So I think there is a very large misconception in our industry that, if you buy a certain stock or an ETF or a mutual fund and immediately you're underwater on it, meaning the next couple of days it's down 5, 10, 15, or 20%, there's a mental hurdle that tells you need to hold it at least just to get back to break even. And I think that does more harm than good for a lot of people. And that's why it's good to have rules in place that, for example, if you enter a trade and it's down 20%, then you just go ahead and sell it and cut your loser short, because that 20% loss can very easily turn into a 40% loss, then a 60% loss. And then next thing you know, you're like a Peloton that's down 97% from its all-time high. And you're like, well, now I'm never going to get back to break even.
Well said.
And then the other side of that is, what's the opportunity cost of staying invested in that losing trade rather than taking that money out at a loss, reinvesting it somewhere else, and then getting back to your dollar break-even point, right?
And letting that other security, if it works out positively, if it's up 20%, it could easily be up 40 or 60 or 80 over an extended period of time, and let the winners run and trim the hedges when you need to.
Right, yeah. And on the other side of that, people tend to sell their winners too
early.
They're up 20% or up 50%, and then they sell it, and then it keeps running another 100%. So, how do you think 20% winners turn into 2,000% winners? Like we've seen,
like 10, 20 bangers.
Not a recommendation for and against this stock, but Nvidia, for example.
Yeah, it's hot in the news. I think it's a relevant one to throw out there as an example.
So that's something that I try to live by every single day.
All right, for me, things are never as bad as they seem, and they're never as good as they seem. If you just take that, not only I think in the investing world, but just life in general, I try to it helps me stay grounded at times on both ends. And I'm going to cheat and give you a second. I just like the old Wall Street adage of you got to buy when there's blood in the streets. And I'm not sure if that's a specific Buffett quote or Buffett got that from someone else. But, in my, 25 plus year career, when you look back, it's like buying when there's blood in the streets. It is very hard and unpopular to do, but in retrospect tends to be a good decision.
Yeah, and we just went through a period where it was, very uncomfortable to buy in early April, right?
Yep.
And things always seem like at the time that it's the worst it's ever been, and it's never going to get better, right?
Yep.
So we just went through this just a month and a half ago. We went through it during 2022. We went through it during COVID. You went through it during the Great Financial Crisis, which I think kind of trumps everything that we've been through over the past decade.
Yep.
And that's, the global financial system on the verge of collapse. That's just about as bad as it can get.
Yeah, it
right?
doesn't get any worse.
And yet still the market has recovered and made investors a lot of money since then. So I truly think that, unless the world is truly coming to an end, markets are always going to recover. You just have to have the patience and discipline to sit through those tough times.
Well said. Biggest investment myth you wish would just die already?
Mine's the recommendation of buying low and selling high, because there's nothing else to it. So what's low? Buying low to me could mean something else, or could have a different meaning than buying low to you or to Jenna or to anybody else. So what is define buying low and define selling high? Maybe high to me is a 30% gain, but high to you is a 3,000% gain.
Well said.
So I think it's something easy for people to latch onto that make it seem that investing is easy and there's no challenges that come along with it, but that's not the case at all. So I would have to say buy low and sell high, because also, if a stock is going to go to $100 per share, it first has to go to $20 per share, then $30 per share, then $60, $70, $80, $90 per share.
And those incremental gains technically are easier than the first $10 gain.
Right. Before it gets to 100. So, there's not enough context around that quote.
Love it. Mine is just people generalizing asset classes with a general risk tolerance. An example would be stocks are risky. Okay. Compared to what?
Right.
Compared to what? Are we comparing it to real estate? Are we comparing it to cash? Are we comparing it to bonds, gold?
Crypto?
Like, talk to me. What are we comparing it to? Mm-hmm. And then you can even subsect within stocks generically risk levels within that, right? It's just when you really start generalizing that fill in the blank, real estate investing is risky or investing in stocks is risky. Well, you know what? Keeping a large amount in the bank for 10 years with inflation and the fact that we've printed 50% of our money supply in the last 5 years, that's risky. Mm-hmm. Listen, I'm starting to get in my soapbox already.
Every decision you make in life could be risky.
Yeah, it's like you just got to keep it. Yeah, I mean, getting in the car and driving to work or church on Sunday is risky if you really think about it.
But if you don't take risks in your life, then you don't live. And investing is no different than that.
You just got to have the right time horizon.
Yeah.
All right. What is the worst financial advice you've heard and why?
I think to put all of your money in annuities and permanent life insurance policies. And, these products have gotten better over the past several years, better than they were at least maybe in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And you can probably speak to that more than I can. Mm-hmm. But just as an example, like life insurance, like it's insurance to be life insurance. I'm not saying there isn't a place for permanent life insurance policies, but I'm just in general not a fan of mixing investing with insurance policies. That's why I'm a fan of cheap 20, 15-year term insurance. It's there if you need it, if something, God forbid, were to happen to you.
Yep.
But, and there's just a whole lot of gotchas that come along with annuities, especially if that's someone's primary job is selling you annuities. Not a huge fan of those people.
So to mimic that, I put double-digit year indexed annuities. So a lot of those things I've seen. I remember one time I was at a prospective client's house. This was in either the late 2000s or early 2010-ish. And I remember they were sold, this individual was in their 80s, and they were sold a 12-year indexed annuity.
Wow.
And the first thought that went through my head is, how in the heck did that go through compliance?
Right.
All right.
Right.
Next thing.
The industry has evolved quite
very
substantially
much. And I
over
think
the past
with the
several
internet,
years,
transparency and stuff.
Right.
I think it's a lot more easy for individuals that aren't ultra knowledgeable about investing in general. you can either use AI or go into just an internet search and start educating yourself. And maybe what are some of the questions, I should be asking? Right. Next, describe your investing style in 3 words. Or 2 words, or 1 word.
Yeah, I would say more trend following momentum. That's 3 words, so I think
That'll work for me.
Was in the parameters there.
Work for
But very simplistically, we want to own things that are going up, and we want to avoid things that are going down. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm going to let you answer this for us because you're our chief investment officer, and you and I are very, very similar on this.
Yeah, you just want to own things. We refer to it as relative strength in our industry. If you are one of those people that are investing in individual stocks, as we do, you want to own the best names in the industry, meaning, those stocks are outperforming the general market. They're outperforming their sector. They're outperforming their industry. So it's you want to own things that are going up. And I think it can be as simple as that. And when you get more into the weeds than that, I think that's where people get themselves in trouble a little bit, trying to figure out if XYZ company is overvalued or undervalued. And it's like, listen, we just want to have a long-term time horizon, and we want to own the best things at different times throughout that time horizon.
Yeah, and I know over the years you've made the comment sometimes things are cheap for a reason and other things are expensive for a reason.
Yeah, that goes back to
that could be a whole podcast within itself.
Right, that goes back to my hatred for the saying buy low, sell high, because if you're buying low, you could be buying a falling knife of a company that's eventually going bankrupt, right?
Yeah. It's selling a discount to the market for a reason.
Yeah, I think people have a misconception that stocks always bounce back. And the best stocks always bounce back.
Maybe the indices do because of the basket, because they move stocks in and out of it.
But there's been thousands and thousands of companies over the past several decades that have never bounced back, and they've gone bankrupt. So not always the case.
Very true. Craziest headline or news event that derailed the markets and your initial reaction?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this as since I've been in the industry.
Sure.
Definitely the COVID period was a wild one. Just seeing the market hit the circuit breakers a couple of times during that month period. Mm-hmm. And that month felt like it was 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Felt like it took 10 years off of our lives.
When you had the market moving 10% up or down in a single trading day.
Yeah. It was, I remember like in our offices, some days we were just left speechless, just like looking at each other, not saying anything, just like, what is happening, right?
One thing I'm proud about is listeners can go back to our podcast recordings. We weren't on video at that time, but we were on audio. All that stuff is timestamped, and you can see exactly as we were communicating it. And in retrospect, we nailed that. Our analysis of the situation, I would say, in my professional opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those times where you didn't think it could get much worse, and how was the market or the economy or just life in general going to get better?
Yeah.
It was hard to see past those couple of weeks, but 2020 ended up being a phenomenal year in the markets.
We had a great year.
And here we are again where, the market at one point this year was down. It was between 14 and 19%, and now we're back to break even just over a period of a couple of weeks. So
4.5 weeks.
If you think you've seen the craziest thing happen, just wait a few more years.
Oh, just wait.
How about you?
For me, it's definitely going to be TARP, fall of 2008. For newer listeners, just so I don't mess this up, I did pull it up. TARP stands for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. That's back in the days of just the craziness. Again, I would remember the trick would be if you got through the weekend and your terminal would log on Monday morning, you were in business for the week. Mm-hmm. So the craziness happened on the weekends.
And you're talking about during the financial crisis.
During the GFC, Great Financial Crisis.
08,
Yep.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was at a big wirehouse, and I would be the first in the office on Mondays to see if my terminal turned on. Because you got to keep in mind, I remember there was this Friday where an advisor in the office sold a client a structured note that was backed by Lehman, and the underlying security was a defined outcome in Procter & Gamble. So everything was hitting the fan. P&G, not a recommendation for or against, but it was selling at a discount. So the person, was like, oh yeah, well, I got this defined outcome. I won't get in the details on P&G, but the bank issuing the note was Lehman. And what happened? On Friday, Lehman had an S&P credit rating of A-. It went bankrupt over the weekend.
Right.
Take that into account.
Talk about crazy.
Yeah, and so when these sentiment surveys are coming out over the past 2 months, and you've heard it in the podcast, Jenna's heard it in our prep, and our listeners and viewers have heard it on the recording. When people are assimilating what's happened the past couple of months, I'm not here to say it wasn't a challenging investment environment, because it was. But when they're trying to assimilate similar circumstances to that, not even relatable.
And you bring up a good piece, because, and again, we're just our investment style. We don't use structured products, and again, not saying there isn't a place for them, but that is also going back to your point of define risky. If someone says stocks are risky,
well said.
Another form of risk is investing in a structured product that has this guaranteed or defined outcome or defined protection, unless the bank issuing that product goes bankrupt.
Needs to be in existence.
Like Lehman
it's on their
did.
balance sheet.
Right?
Right?
So, again, as good as a product or an investment might sound, you need to fully understand the risks associated with that specific product.
Well said. One more. We're going to do kind of a speed round. Name one investor that tends to get quoted by mainstream financial news media that you wish wouldn't, and why?
Probably Jeremy Grantham, because it seems like it's almost every week he's calling for a stock market crash. And it's just interesting to me because, and I've said it a million times on the podcast, people spend so much time preparing for the worst possible outcome.
Well said.
And just completely throwing out the window that on average the market's up 3 out of every 4 years. If the market's up 75% of the time, shouldn't we be spending time also on preparing for the good times that we're going to be in most of the time?
Well said.
And this guy is just a perpetual perma-bear that thinks the world is going to hell in a handbasket. And here we are still today after everything the market has been through since its inception. And it's still making money for investors. So
broken clock is still right twice a day. So mine is going to be, and this goes back to my GFC days, is definitely Dr. Doom, also known as Rubini, Nouriel Rubini. And he's just quoted all the time, and I'm over it. I'm over it.
I'm over it.
All right, so speed round questions, okay? I'm just going to read it, and then I'll either just immediately answer or you can answer. Let's just drill through this very, very quick. Are you ready?
Let's alternate.
All right,
so
let's alternate.
You
I'll
go
start.
One, I'll go two.
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Growth or value?
Agnostic, whatever's going up. Bonds or cash?
Love that. Right now, cash.
Okay.
Bonds are
Depends
a lot of
on-
cross currents, baby.
Depends on the
Lots of
environment.
cross currents. Bull market or bear market for learning?
I'm going to say bull market because we're in a bull market more often than we're in a bear market.
Love it.
ETF or mutual fund?
ETF. I love the ability to trade during the day. Having when it's a mutual fund, it prices at 4. I don't get the price till 4. I think the mutual fund industry will slowly die and everything's going to be an ETF eventually.
Yeah, and ETFs tend to be cheaper too.
Rebalance frequency, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annually, Mark?
This is an interesting one. So not going to be a straightforward answer, but I just think whenever your risk tolerance is above or below the target range. So if you want to target a range of stock exposure between 75 or 85%, if that gets to where the point where stock is 90% of your portfolio or it's 50% of your portfolio, that's when you rebalance. I don't think you have to have a standard this time every single year. I think it's just dependent on the environment.
I think people will be intrigued by that answer, by the way.
Paper statement or digital only?
I'm old school, baby. Send me the paper.
Paper statement?
Are you surprised by that?
No, not at all.
Coffee or tea?
Definitely coffee. Definitely
Would
coffee.
you drink tea? If you were over at my house and I'm like, hey, I got some tea, would you drink it? Are you going to respond? What's the show that's on Apple TV really hot, The Coach, the soccer coach?
Oh, Ted Lasso?
Yeah, you gonna pull like a Ted Lasso on me and like spit it out?
I've just never been a big tea fan. The only time I drink tea is when I'm sick. It's called, it's literally called the throat coat. So when you have like a sore throat,
I stock it at the house.
That's the only time.
Yeah.
But I love my morning coffee. I have my whole coffee routine down. So it'd be very, very difficult for me to switch over.
So, I learned recently when I traveled for work that I now make like an elaborate latte for me and Rachel, that the entire 4 days I was gone, Rachel didn't have any coffee. And she was so excited when I got back. I found out that she's like, yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but I love when Matt makes me the coffee.
Right. It's easy for her when she's not the one making it.
That's right.
Early riser or snooze button abuser?
Ooh. It's gotten worse. I definitely was an earlier riser when I was younger, and it's getting bad. I'm at least hit the snooze once right now. At least
Really?
once.
What's your average snooze hits?
One, and I know it's 8 minutes, whatever the iPhone's like programmed to be. And what helps me is knowing I have deadlines. And so the deadline for me is usually getting the kids out the door.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Podcast or book?
Definitely podcast. I listen to podcasts all the time.
How many podcasts do you regularly listen to? How many are we talking?
Like my weekly.
Yeah. What's your rotation? I
rotation?
don't need names. Just give me numbers. Are we
Yeah.
talking like 3 or 4 active, 5?
1, 2, 3.
He has to
4,
think about it, Jenna. That's when you know it's a number.
5, 6.
Bigger
Six on a weekly.
My over under
routine.
was going to be 5.
Yeah.
You're over.
Yeah, I just for whatever reason, I just got sick of just listening to music. So I don't, if I'm in the car or if I'm working out or on a walk, pretty much exclusively listening to a podcast. And I've gotten comments from friends that I'm a psychopath for listening to podcasts when I work out. But it's just, I don't know, passes the time.
Love it.
So
I'm here for it.
Mac or PC?
This is going to be a very maybe controversial statement, but I'm just going to say it. People who regularly use Macs are psychopaths. Okay?
Reasoning. Give me the reasoning.
Just the shortcuts. Like you can't do like Control V and Control C. It's like it is so unintuitive that like the iPhone is relatively intuitive. Okay? You get on a Mac, it's like a drunk person who's like, I think that's a good idea, designs it and forgets about it for a decade. It is
so
very hard to use.
What's your opinion on
There's no
why?
right click.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's one button.
I would argue like my 13-year-old is now using a PC because when you become a really big gamer, you got to do it in the PC, not on a traditional console. And he's like, Mom, I think I want to get a Mac. And I'm like, you do not want to get a Mac. You would not do well.
So why do you think Apple is so good at phones and not great at computers? And then, PCs are great, but then your Androids of the world are it's like a second-class citizen to the iPhone.
I don't know. That is a good question. So, for example, I'm in Dayton Rotary. It's a phenomenal organization. I usually volunteer to do the video for those on Zoom. So we have a mic, and when people are talking, those on Zoom, we usually have about 15 to 20 people on Zoom. And the phone that's supplied by the club is Android. And I'm telling you, it is hard to use. It is not intuitive.
Yeah.
It's worse than iPhone.
Yeah, I would agree. My dad's still one of those guys that are just like, I think it's a principal thing for him now that he's just like, I'm never switching to an iPhone because he's had an Android his entire life.
I would love to debate somebody who is in love with Macs, and maybe we get Rachel on here because my wife uses her Mac. I think we need to get someone on here. I would love to debate it. Let's just go.
Yeah, I would agree. My mom used to have a Mac computer or laptop, and it was the hardest thing in the world to use.
All right, let's add to the repertoire.
So
spreadsheet or whiteboard?
Spreadsheet. Definitely spreadsheet.
No hesitation on that.
No
one.
hesitation.
Go.
Work from home or office energy?
I'm old school. Office energy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Creativity, collaboration, just different.
Yeah,
person.
I would agree. I like that the technology evolution to this point to where if you're feeling under the weather or, there's something going on where you have to work from home, you can. But I'm with you. I would choose to work in the office 5 out of 5 times.
Got it. I think we got time for maybe about 5 or 6 more questions. So we have longer than that. So at this point, you can start hunting and pecking.
Okay.
Is that fair? But I am going to ask you the next one because I want the listeners and viewers to know your answer because I have a feeling on how you're going to answer this. Silent desk or background music?
Background music. And I used to be a silent desk guy, but it was probably a couple of years ago at this point.
I guess about 3 for you.
Yeah, Nick Whitaker in our office turned me on to a YouTube video that was just like background music. So then I took that to another level and downloaded like an app on my phone.
He's dialed in, Jenna.
That's like focus music.
Yeah.
And because I feel like the older and older I get, it's harder and harder for me to like focus, but this does it like right away for me.
Interesting.
And I know like people on our team, like probably think I'm crazy because I have like my headphones in like all day, every day, but that's the one thing that can get me like laser focused on what I need to do.
I'm here for it.
Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger? I'm glad I'm asking this question because I don't have an answer to this.
Neither, really. I feel that their investment time horizon, how they invest, is very unorthodox for the average investor. And I'm not saying that the parent company, this is not a recommendation for or against the parent company of Berkshire Hathaway for investors, but it's so unorthodox that it is a disconnection from the average investor. And the fact that people try to apply those principles to themselves, yes, you could do it, but could you imagine be sitting with, that much cash in your relative portfolio and just smiling and being like, I got a process?
Right.
Not the average person can't do that.
Yeah, agreed. That's a really good point because I think that's one of the things that doesn't get mentioned a whole lot is, Munger and Buffett are looked at as these legendary investors, which I agree with, but people blindly following what they do is usually not a good thing because no one is like those two.
Very well said. Well said. I'm going to pick one because I want to answer it too. First concert you ever attended?
So I actually texted my buddy Dom on this earlier today because I thought it was with him.
I won't say his last name. First name goes by Dominic.
Yeah, so it was either John Mayer or Brad Paisley. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was John
Was Dominic
Mayer.
present at both?
No, he was just present at one. He was present at Brad Paisley.
I would give a pretty penny to be at that first concert with you and Dom.
Yeah. So we had a good time. We were in high school. It was at this place called Darien Lake in upstate New York.
Yes.
Which is like an amusement park, but had like a concert venue.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was. My memory's not great. So either John Mayer or Brad Paisley. How about you?
Definitely Dave. It was June of '95, Riverbend. And for those that know me pretty well, in Cincinnati, and for those that know me pretty well, I don't have the full accurate count of the number of Dave concerts I've been to. My goal is 5 a year. That's usually my goal. And I know I'm probably in the 60s or 70s, possibly more, but I went so much and it was so cheap back then that we'd sit in the lawn and I've seen them all over the place.
Yeah, seen Dave once at Saratoga.
Oh my
gosh,
famous venues.
SPAC
would be amazing.
Camped out, and it was horrible weather the weekend that we went. So we were literally camping in tents and sleeping bags, and it was
pouring
torrential
rain?
Downpour the entire time.
Sounds like okay.
Yeah,
well,
like a Dave concert.
Let's do 2 more. I'll let you pick one.
Netflix or YouTube?
I would traditionally say Netflix, but I'm slowly converting to YouTube because my kids are. Right? They're on there, and it's interesting just how much content and stuff's on there. I would say that as a family, we play more games together than we do watch TV together.
One show that you're watching right now, not just on Netflix, could be anything.
Well, I had it on my guilty pleasure list. So my guilty pleasure show is definitely called The Curse of Oak Island. And it's on the History Channel, very nerdy. I'll get into that in a different episode. Last of Us, we're watching that, but I can't watch it right before I go to bed because I'll have nightmares about it.
Yeah, you're
Listen,
saying
I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, I can't watch it before I go to bed because I'll have nightmares. But it's true.
Yeah.
How about you?
Right now it's called Your Friends and Neighbors. It's on Apple TV. It's with John Hamm.
I'm going to check it out.
He was worked at a hedge fund, got fired from his hedge fund, wife left him, like life is kind of falling apart. So he turns to stealing things from like his friends' houses
Oh my gosh.
in some like upscale neighborhood in California. So it's pretty
It
good.
sounds fun. All right, one last one. I'll let you pick it.
Let's see here. I want to ask you two more.
Fair.
First is go-to karaoke song.
Oh, this is easy, and you know the answer, but our viewers don't, and they're going to be shocked when they hear it. So growing up, I know the words. I do not need a teleprompter. Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. I can rock it.
And I do believe I have video on my phone of you singing that song. So if anyone wants to see that,
Don't tell. Now
Reach
the
out to
team's going to
me.
find this out.
Reach
Because
out
most
to
of the
me
team doesn't know
separately.
that.
well,
Yeah,
it was it Aaron and Michaela's.
No, it was at a team trip.
Oh, the team trip.
We did a team trip.
Yeah.
I think Kelly was there at the time. Aaron,
that's good.
Aaron was
Yeah,
there.
Aaron was there.
Yeah. What about you, by the way?
I would say Wagon Wheel by Old Crow Medicine. That was
Do I know that one?
Yeah, you do. Darius Rucker has a
Okay.
rendition on it. It's
Okay.
it's like kind of like the bar closing song.
Got it.
Or at least it was at UD.
I'm
when we
sure.
were
Okay,
there.
got it. Once I hear it, I'm
Yeah.
sure I would know.
Yeah. I would try to sing it for you, but I'm not.
I'm not trying to tee that up, but now that you gave me the idea,
Yeah.
you could close this out.
Yeah, singing Wagon Wheel. Yeah, that would be
I don't
fun.
know what this means to close this out.
The other one that I wanted to ask you is, other than watching The Last of Us before bed, the most irrational fear you have.
Oh my gosh. Wow, I never thought about that. I don't know, Mark. I'd have to give that some thought, man. What do you think my most irrational fear is? If I made you guess, you know me very well.
I don't know if it's an irrational fear, but I remember this was several years ago when we were on a work trip and we split a hotel room and the alarm went off in our room like to wake up in the
I
morning.
remember this event.
And Matt literally jumped out of bed like
Jolted.
there was like an earthquake or something.
I was
going
ready.
on.
I was ready to go right into action.
Like freaking out, which was hilarious. So I don't know if it's like night terrors or or what's going on when you're sleeping.
Just
but
all the responsibility in my life just culminates at times, right?
yeah, mine is heights. Like the older I get, like I
Really?
get more nervous going like into tall buildings, and I have dreams all the time.
Do you
that
think
I'm-
it's because now you being a father? You think it's like
I
that
don't know.
responsibility?
Yeah, I don't know. I have I'm fine in a plane, but I have no desire to like climb up a mountain. I have no desire
Interesting.
to go in a hot air balloon.
I have no interest in doing that. The people who climb like Everest and
Yeah.
the death percentage rate,
Right.
that's insanity.
Yeah, I don't have any interest.
Would
in
you go
doing
skydiving?
that. No,
I couldn't either.
no.
I couldn't give you a number.
There's a price for everything, but it has to be a pretty high number.
I think we could get to a number for both of us, but it would have to be very hefty.
Yeah, there was a group of our
And we
friends.
couldn't do it together.
No, yeah,
Not with the way the
yeah.
practice is set up.
There was a group of our friends when we were at school at Dayton that went skydiving, and
Yeah.
they asked me to go, and I was like, number one, zero desire to do that. Number two, if you're going to go skydiving, wouldn't you want to do it in a place like Hawaii or somewhere other than Dayton, Ohio, where all you see is farmland when you're falling 30,000 feet from the sky?
Yes. I remember on, I forget which anniversary it was. I think it was our 10th. We went to a very exotic place. We went to Bora Bora. And I remember it was just Rachel and I and this boat driver. And the boat driver is like jumping in the water with like sharks. I'm not exaggerating. I have video of it. And Rachel, my wife, just jumps in with sharks. And she pops her head up. She's like, come in. And you want to know the first words I said to her? Mark would kill me. That's exactly what I said to her. I'm like, Mark would kill me if I got in that water.
Yeah, I just, maybe we just don't have that
Pain threshold?
pain threshold or DNA sequence that,
We could just trust
gives
the
us
process is going to happen.
Yeah, it gives us joy off of doing those types
Maybe
of things.
that's why our clients love us so much.
Yeah, we're just more conservative by nature.
There it is.
There's nothing wrong with
I
that.
think it's a good way to end the podcast.
I would agree. So, thanks everyone for not only listening to this episode number 300, but listening to all the episodes leading up to this point. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't thank Jenna for all of the stuff she does behind the scenes and editing this
Very
and
much
getting
so.
the graphics up and getting YouTube set up and
Getting
blasted
edited,
out
published,
on all the podcast
video,
outlets. So thank you
the
for what you
promos
do,
online.
Jenna. And we're going to continue to do this probably until we can't anymore. So here's to the next 300 episodes.
All right, everyone, take care. We'll see you next week. Regular format.
Thank you for listening to the Independent Advisors Podcast. If you're interested in hearing more, hit the subscribe button so you can be notified every time a new episode gets released. Feel free to share with friends, family, and follow us on Twitter at Jessup Wealth, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Mark and Matt will continue to share beneficial information on these social media sites. Also, check out the podcast tab on their website. That's www.jessupwealthmanagement.com. There you'll find links to every episode of the Independent Advisors. Have questions or topics you want to discuss on the show? Message us on Twitter, LinkedIn, or send an email with the words questions and topics in the subject line to inquiries@jessupwealthmanagement.com. We'll talk about it right here on the podcast. Certain sections of this commentary may contain forward-looking statements based on reasonable expectations, estimates, projections, and assumptions. Forward-looking statements are not guarantees of future performance and involve certain risks and uncertainties which are difficult to predict. All indices are unmanaged and are not available for direct investment by the public. Past performance is not indicative of future results. This podcast is provided for general informational purposes only and does not constitute either tax, legal, or financial advice. Although we do go to great lengths to make sure our information is accurate and useful, we recommend you consult a tax preparer, professional tax advisor, financial advisor, or lawyer regarding your specific circumstances. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No strategy can guarantee any objective or goal will be achieved.